it's not so much embracing. Well, I mean, it is embracing change, but I think the challenge of it is something that we welcome, and it's not always easy to do, because it's hard to, especially when you master something. It's easy to do that and then like make that better and better and better. But we as a group sit down and we talk. It's like, okay, what, like, it could just be about life as it pertains to the music. It's like, okay, what are we into at this moment in time? Like, what is it? Like, what, let's not like dwell on the past, you know, even for as important as that is, us as growing human beings, you know, this is about life, you know, the lyrics and the songs are about life, and then the music follows suit. And I think the aesthetics are a result of that. It's a result of discussions. It's a result of, oh, check this out. Things that we hear, like how we're hearing things. And to challenge that is there's always risk in that, but we've become a little bit more comfortable in taking that risk because we've done it many times. Sometimes I think in the early days, we were maybe more timid to try those things out in a bold way. And I think on this one, we've got to the place that we're comfortable enough to let first of all, do the thing that feels most right to us, and then give the listener the opportunity and the benefit of the doubt to accept it on its merits.
For me, it's a different energy.
It's going to be different for each guy.
Yeah, for me, it's a totally different energy.
For the most part, no.
Glad I asked.
Yeah, it's like, because touring is like, everything's like extroverted, like sharing, right? And then being in the studio, it's much more like internal, and like kind of quiet, ironically. And so for me, there's actually a nice yin and yang with that.
There definitely was a period, there was a time where, you know, as the songs were kind of amassing and like the body of work was exposing itself, like these are the songs that we are really all gravitating towards. These are the songs that are the farthest along. These are the songs that we all feel really strongly about. When you put them together, there's something interesting happening here. And are we comfortable going down this road? Because like, it's probably going to take some people by surprise, you know, and we're okay with that. Like, we do that all the time. Dave made a really interesting observation today, but like Hybrid Theory, it's taken 20 years for that record to become the record it is in people's minds. It didn't come out like out of the gate with people going, this will be an album that will go down as one of the best rock albums. Like, no, people fucking hated that record and they hated us. And people loved that record and they loved us. You were either on, it was very black and white. You were either one or the other. There was no, you know, we'll see how this works out for the group. There's potential here. Like, the record's really good. There's shining moments and there's some dull ones, whatever. No, it was like, we were either genius for creating a new venue for music and rock music to be listened to and how to blend music, or I was the Antichrist. Okay, like it was like there was like, that's how drastic and dramatic the difference was.
That's a literal.
And that's
quote.
literal. That was a literal quote. I'm not
Chester.
making that up.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, dude, this guy just said that I am the reason for everything that's bad in the world.
The
like,
funny thing too is that and just thinking about the context of that, it wasn't like a tweet. That was like a journalistic, like it was written in a newspaper.
One of my favorite parts was, he's the reason for disease,
Yes.
for poverty, for like everything bad and like death. Like, it was like everything that was horrible in the world that made people uncomfortable. It was like, I am the responsible person. It's so funny. At the time, I was really upset, but now I'm like, wow, we really made that guy feel something, you know?
and you know what?
Inherently, in each member of the band, we all have a real capacity for empathy, and so we care about how each other feels. And I was like, this is the most functional relationship I've ever been in, is the relationship I have within Linkinpark. Most of my other relationships outside of that have come and gone. You know, I've had friendships for a long time. Now that we're not friends anymore. I've had marriage, not married, and then, you know, I've all these relationships with people that come and go and ebb and flow. And you know, it is very interesting to see a group of people, especially in a creative sense, stay together for so long and continue to make something new. And that also isn't pulling from something that was good a long time ago to try to keep people interested in what we're doing or keep us known. Like, and I think that the key to that is the fact that we really actually do care about each other as people first. And in communicating, I mean, I can very rarely think of a moment where we've had a communication where it was like a frictional conversation where emotions just went crazy and someone stormed out of a room, like, or, you know, yelled at somebody. I can't recall that. I mean, I know that they've seen me yell at somebody else, but it wasn't directed at like them. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's we have that capacity to like have these experiences with other people, but for some reason we've been able to restrain ourselves emotionally to the degree where we're like, you know what, like, whatever is best for the group is the most important. And if that means touring only a certain number of times a year, if that means making sure that we have enough time with our families, if that means that there has to be a balance between normal and rock star world, fantastic. If that means we only talk to certain publications, we get that. If that means we only do, you know, there's like all these things we put in place, and we've actually created our own ethos and environment to work in that way. And you know, one of the people that works for us, who helps us run the whole ship, one of the things that drew him to work with us is the fact that we're kind of like, yeah, I mean, we could do all this stuff, but then we'd be kind of miserable people, like human beings at the end of it. So like, let's just figure out a way to do like as much as we can and be happy. And he's just like, well, he had said, like, I've never heard anybody say that before. Like, there needs to be balance, and let's make sure that there's a healthy balance, so that we can do this for our lifetimes, as opposed to like suck the tit dry, you know, and then run on. And so, and I think that as a result of that, like, we've been able to grow with each other through all the diverse times of our lives, and grow creatively through all the different directions that we go, and be open to that, and not take things so personally. And our creative path has always been, we kind of grade things. We kind of like, you know, we sit down, we talk about it, we go through, we rate things, and then we look at the results anonymously. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we'll all go through and go, ooh, I like this one, I like this one, I like this one, check it. And then we just turn the papers in and like have somebody else like look through the paperwork. This worked for a long time. We don't necessarily do this anymore. But then it's all of a sudden like, well, I know you said you love this track and you said you love this track, but it only got like one vote.
On the previous album, we did a couple of songs, like Rebellion is probably the best example, where we worked with somebody outside the band. And that was the one song where it was like from inception, it was me and Darren Malakian. starting from scratch together. And we did it, and I thought, first of all, I think Darren's just a great writer. And so that was really exciting. It was fun to do, and I felt like I learned something. And it was refreshing because it was so different. So then coming into this album, I thought, well, that worked there. Like, it was fun to do, and I liked the song that we ended up with. Let's try some more of that and see what's out there. And in the beginning, it was like sifting through a lot of our favorite songs. And like Brad and I made a list, this like crazy list of all these favorite songs and people who were involved with them. When you started seeing names show up more than once, a good example would be a guy named Egg White. Egg had written on some Adele stuff and some Florence and the Machine stuff and some other stuff that we really liked. And it was like, okay, that's a guy we should reach out to. Got a meeting with Egg, went to his studio in London and hung out there, and we wrote together. And I just loved it. It was just so fun because the way he writes is different, because his whole energy and his personality he's, you know, obviously not like any of us. And we're not like one another, but we're used to each other. You throw this other person in the mix and it's like it shakes things up and keeps it kind of fresh. So usually it would be, we find, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I find making tracks really easy. Like, I love making sounds. So for me, it's like sitting down and making a beat or a track is relatively quick and enjoyable. And then usually the lyrics and the melody, the vocals, will come inspired from the track. Like, I'll listen to the track and I'll think of what it makes me want to sing. This album was the opposite. And to start walking in the door and saying, okay, what do we want to sing about today? What do we want to write about? What's on your mind? Brad and I, it was almost always Brad and I as like the core writing team, and we would, some days it was just the two of us, and we would come in and we'd say, what are you thinking about today? Today, I want to write a song about being away from my family. And everything comes from that. You all of a sudden you have vocals, you have melody, you have chords underneath it, and you say, okay, this is essentially the song. I can play it on piano and sing over top of it. Like, what kind of sounds, as I said before, like, I really enjoy the track making part. So like, now having already a solid foundation of a song, like the rest of it's like just gravy. Like, and then it's just a playtime adding the cool sounds on top of it. I remember there was a conversation about what the first single should be. And when we all kind of started like throwing around the idea of heavy, there was like this almost like maniacal like chuckle about like, oh my God, people are gonna be so freaked out by that. Like, they're gonna be like why? But and the same conversation was, and why pull any punches? Like, yeah, do we want to put out something that make people go like, say, wait, what? What are you doing? That's the point, isn't it? Like, that's get people's attention and say, hey, look, this is, and this song is not an outlier. It's a central song to the album. It is something that, you know, it establishes like the core sound and like tone of the record. So yeah, that was intentional. I would also like, just to explain kind of where it came from though, Zane Lowe texted me almost a couple years, it was like 18 months ago or something probably. And he said, have you heard of this girl Kiara? And I said, yeah. She's like, you know, nobody had really knew about her yet, but I knew that I follow the music blogs, and I heard her song Gold and I loved it. I thought it was really cool. And he's like, well, Zane said, I interviewed her the other day, and I asked her who her favorite band was, and she immediately said Linkinpark. I was like, that's weird. He's like, I know. It's like, that's why you need to meet her, because she's really interesting. I think she's really talented. And, you know, fast forward to months and months and months later, we had already kind of like, you know, been chatting here and there and kind of became friendly. And we had the song Heavy. Our original version had, original version, Chester and Brad and I worked on it with Justin Tranter and Julia Michaels. And at that time, Julia was not really performing as an artist herself. She was still just writing with other people. And she sang with us on the demo. And we had this version with just Chester singing, but we also had clips of Julia singing the same thing down. And we always liked that female quality of like that other vocal. And so we asked Kiara to sing it, and she just brought it to another level. And Chester jokes actually, but he apparently he had had a conversation with Julia about, well, why don't you just sing it? And she's like, oh, I don't do that. Like, that was like her mind state at the time. It's like, no, I don't do that. Now she clearly does it.